Hello, I'm Derek from Inflatable SUP Authority, and today we will be reviewing the Nixy Newport G5. Now with the previous model, the G4, I was supremely impressed with this board. So how does the G5 do? We'll be making direct comparisons between the G4 and the G5, as well as telling you my exact experiences paddling this board. Stay tuned. Who is the Newport G5 for? Now, in my experience, the Newport G5 is a little bit more twitchy compared to the G4, so I would say it's better for intermediate paddlers or smaller paddlers as well. Someone my height of about 6 foot, it may take you a few times to actually get used to it, as the board definitely has a little bit more twitchiness compared to a lot of other all-around boards. I've grown to actually really like this from the Newport series, but other people might take a little bit to get used to. It's also a pretty good board for putting a smaller passenger on, like a kid or a dog, as well as it's also a maneuverable board, which allows you to go through tighter inlets like this. Now just quickly gonna run off some of the specs of the Newport G5. The G5 is 10 foot 6 inches long. It's 32 inches wide. It weighs 21 pounds, so it's actually a very lightweight board. Great idea for especially smaller paddlers who want something very lightweight to paddle in. And it has a capacity of 300 pounds. Now this board is made of a dual layer fusion PVC layering, which is one of our preferred methods. And it also has welded seams as well as woven laminated drop stitch material. Now we'll be doing the nose to tail of the board. So it's the nose. The handle is a little bit different from the G4, but we'll show that in a sec. So you can see it comes with a little towing D-ring as well. The nose parts the water pretty nice, and it's uplifted a decent amount so it doesn't drag in the water. Comes with a really beautiful design as well. I do like this blue. It's called Exuma blue. Now this is the front bungee deck webbing, and this may be contrary to popular opinion, but I do actually like the smaller items in the front, because that is the items that I access the most whenever I'm on the paddleboard. So things such as water bottles, speakers, or like a small little dry bag. I do like that the deck webbing is smaller because it could keep the items on the board a little more compact in there, as opposed to deck webbing that is a little bit wider spaced out. So you can see this board also has some action mounts, so you can put cup holders, you can put rod holders, action cameras. It also has a phone mount as well, which I use, and I'll show you guys in the next few videos. Going over there as well. See that this is a stamped striped deck padding. As we get to the middle of the board, this handle is neoprene, which I really do appreciate. I find the neoprene handles are the best, especially for your hands. And should you want to get a kayak conversion seat, it also allows you to clip that on right here either side, but get the kayak conversion seat with just the 2 clips, not the 4. As you can see, there's more action mounts at the back here, so there's a total of 5. And then for the heavier items, you could put it at the back. So bigger items such as coolers, backpacks. I usually like to have a speaker in the back as well. A lot of people say it's a faux pas, but I personally like to vibe on the water, and these seals seem to like it as well. There's also an action mount in the back here, and that is the D-ring for the leash, as well as the rear handle. You can also notice that the rear of the board is a little bit narrower compared to some other all-around boards, and that makes it feel a little bit more, I don't want to say tippy, but it makes it feel like it has a lot more play in the water because of this narrower shape. If you're curious about the accessories that come with the Newport G5, well, you're looking at them. This is a bit of a stripped down package compared to the G4, which actually does come with the kayak hybrid paddle, the backpack, etc. I kind of feel like that's a little bit of a shame, the fact that they really stripped the package down. But also, you know, inflation, etc. I can understand why they do that. Now, fortunately, you can buy these accessories with this package at a discounted rate, so it's not completely all for loss. And we'll go through these accessories on the bench that are the add-ons. These are some of the add-on accessories that you can buy with the package. Now, I should note that this package is actually from my G4 paddleboard, but it's pretty much the exact same items. The bag is the same, so is the leash, and also the carbon hybrid paddle. So we'll go through each one of these one by one on the bench here. Now we're just going to talk about the bag that is separate from the G5 package, but can be bought at a discount price if you buy the board. So this is one of the better bags, I think, in the SUP industry, especially for about the mid-tier price range. So we'll just go through it here. You can see it has actually a very nice, generous size front pocket, as well as a little, I guess I'll just call it a travel patch for when you go traveling, you're on the airplane, etc. You can see this bag, this pocket is pretty big. You can even probably place a PFD. I like to put the leash in there, etc. And then, of course, in the back, there are the wheels, which I think is really good. And I do appreciate that there is a center wheel here. It helps support the bag as opposed to having it sag in the middle, which I think is great. You can also see there's some loops over here as well. You're going to clip on. The handle is also very nice and padded, which I do appreciate. And finally, there's clips that allows you to secure the package, make sure it's in a tight sort of formation. You also have side pockets over here, which you can just put little odds and ends. I personally this is usually for the paddle, so you slide the paddle in there so that you don't have to throw it into the package. I do actually like that concept. So as we open the bag, you can see that it has fin pockets. Now, the G5 one might just have the one pocket. I'm not entirely sure, but this is the bag from the G4, as I mentioned before. Good amount of room. There's also clips in there to secure the package. This is the back of the bag. So one of the things I do really like about this package is the fact you have a lot of padding. Like, look at how thick that padding is. I really do appreciate that with SUP bags. I find it's kind of an underlooked aspect, so I do like that Nixy included it. You can also see the padding on the back is actually very well placed as well. It's just a very well made bag. You could even use this probably for carrying a whole bunch of other stuff. I do appreciate this side handle as well. Makes it a lot easier to get the bag from out of the trunk, as opposed to kind of struggling with it with just the one handle. I also do like to use this handle at the bottom as well to help carry the bag out of the trunk. It's pretty ideal. Overall though, I love this bag. I do wish it was included, but like I said, you can get a discount price with the board. This is the Nixy Carbon Hybrid Paddle. Now this, just like the bag, is the G4 spec. So the G5 might maybe have a bit of a different design, but it's a carbon hybrid paddle. And if I'm honest, this is probably one of my favorite paddles in the SUP industry. It's super lightweight. It's more lightweight than most other paddles you get with SUPs, which I do appreciate. It's also very nice in your hands. Just paddling it, even I was paddling this compared to an aluminum paddle a few days ago, and this just felt so much lighter. It's like the equivalent with hockey sticks. You have a carbon fiber stick, which is a heck of a lot more lightweight, versus a wood hockey stick, which is heavier. Now, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal at the time, but after an hour or two of paddling, you really start to feel the difference, and you start to feel the extra weight, especially with heavier paddles that are fiberglass or aluminum. So I do appreciate that. So you can see this is a little bit scratched up from use, but yeah, you can see it's a little bit more of a square blade. And now we'll be doing a direct comparison between the Nixy Newport G5 and the Newport G4. The Newport G4 is from 2021, so it's a few years old, but the specs are pretty much the same throughout the generations up to 2023. So as you can see, they are shaped very similarly. The main differences, and there's not really a lot, they're almost exactly the same, is the fact that the Newport G5, so the one right on the left here, is actually a little bit lighter, and I think that's because it only has one fin. It's also an inch, it's an inch less on the width compared to the G4. Now, paddling these two boards, I found that the G4 had a little bit better primary stability, which means the board is just sitting in the water, while the G5 had a little bit of extra secondary stability, which is the side-to-side motion. I also found that the G5 accelerated faster and was a little bit more maneuverable, while the G4 tracked better, and that was due to its fin setup, which we'll show you in a sec here. Welcome to the bottom of the boards. So as you can see, the styles are a little bit different. Both are blue in this case. I do really like the graphics of the G5 on the bottom a little bit better. It just has that sort of I don't know, psychedelic kind of feel to it, which kind of my vibe. This has the leaves, which is pretty nice. As you can see, both have the towing D-rings, but we'll show you the main difference here. The G4 also has the paddle holder, while they eliminated it from the G5. Personally, I wasn't really a big fan of this paddle holder. I get what Nixy is trying to do, but there are paddle holders that I found out there that were a little bit better. So now we get to the fins, the back of the boards. So actually, something I just noticed is that the tail is actually a little bit wider on the G5 compared to the G4. You can see it's a bit of a skinnier tail on the G4. And of course, the main thing as well is the fin setups. Now, the improved tracking on the G4 is because of these two side fins, which I personally really like this setup quite a bit. With the G5, you only get the center fin, so that makes the board a little bit more maneuverable. But I do like that it kept the US fin box, and it also has US Coast Guard fin identification for a motor. So what that is you could put a motorized fin onto this board, and it has the identification thing, which you need for US Coast Guard specs and things like that. So that is a handy little feature. One of the other things I did notice, actually we'll pull the board like this, is that the G4 has carbon side rails, but the G5 does not. I found that to be interesting, to say the least, because I actually did find that the G4 was a little bit sturdier when I was bouncing on it, and I have a feeling that the carbon side rails are the factor that made it a little bit stiffer, even though there is a lot of debate in the SUP community about that. Welcome to the likes and dislikes of the Newport G5. So some of the things that I really like about the G5 is it did keep a lot of the onboard accessories that I appreciated from the G4. So it has the action mounts, all 5 of them on board. It also has the towing D-ring, which is actually a pretty handy feature if you have a cabin at the lake and you have a boat or whatever. I like the look of the board. The board is absolutely beautiful, especially the bottom. I felt that this board is very maneuverable and it's very responsive. I personally thought it was a very fun board to paddle. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Blackfin Ultra CX in terms of its feeling on the water. I also like the fact with the bungee deck webbing, you can put the smaller stuff, more accessible stuff in the front, put the bigger stuff in the back. I do personally like this setup for myself. If you're on a bit of a multi-day tour, you may want a little bit of a different setup, but I personally like it. I also like the handle. It's very nice on the hands. The board is supremely lightweight, which I think is a big bonus, especially for smaller paddlers. I liked the acceleration of this board as well. There's a very good acceleration. When I was paddling against the tide, I felt a little more comfortable paddling on this board compared to the G4, as it's a little more lighter weight, so it's easier to go against the wind and tide. I also do like the construction of the Newport G5. It is dual layer PVC, fusion PVC, which is about the standard of a lot of SUPs right now. It also has woven drop stitch, which is basically thicker strands of drop stitching that are woven together to make the board a little bit more robust and stronger. It also requires less materials, which is something I also really appreciate. Now, things that I felt the Newport G5 could have improved on. I believe that Newport G5, in my testing of back-to-back on-water performance tests, I found that the G5 had a little bit less primary stability. And I think a lot of it is due to the fact that it's a bit lighter weight. So beginners may have a little bit of adjusting, let's just say, with this board. If you're a beginner, you can still do it, but I feel like this board caters a little bit better to smaller / intermediate paddlers who want a quick and maneuverable all-around board. Of course, the obvious omission for me is the lack of accessories that comes with the board. I do feel it's a shame that they don't include that really nice bag and the paddle, as I believe those are some of the best accessories in the industry in terms of coming with the package. I also found that the tracking on the G5 is a little bit worse. Now that's because of the single fin setup, so that's bound to happen. Another thing I did find between the G5 and G4 is that I felt that the G4 was just a little bit, it was more robust. It was just a tiny bit sturdy when I was doing the bounce tests. I just felt there's a teensy tiny bit more bend when I was bouncing on this board compared to the G4. And as I mentioned before, I do believe that is because of the carbon side rails. Thanks for watching this review. This is Derek from Inflatable SUP Authority. If you like this video, please feel free to like and subscribe. Otherwise, you can see the link to the product and the review in the bio link. Take care.